Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the Vegas Dice Kings here with Danny Craps, me, Pat and Pending, to give you another edition of a little bit about dice, what it was like for us when we came from downtown out on the strip, some of the certain people we've run into. It's going to be a fun show. I enjoy the game itself. It's exciting, it's fast, it's exhilarating. Danny, you got any inputs on that?
Well, that was one of the first things that I learned right away is that the speed of the game, which is, it was like the Grand Prix of dice dealing. You had to learn how to get jiggy with it as a dice dealer, and once you learned the basics, you had to learn the speed of the game, especially when you went out on the strip, because they expected them games to move. And if you were a dealer that was a little slow, it wasn't that long before they would talk to you or they put you in the back where they know you couldn't do any damage. So it was like no other game. Pat and Pending, you can describe Baccarat and Blackjack. Tell them that Baccarat's a much slower pace.
Oh, Baccarat's a lot smaller. Real slow. So is 21. Dice is a hands-on game. It's more fast. It's fast paced. You get your hands into the layout. Your fingernails are dirty from the layouts, the green of the layout and everything, the chips and everything. I mean, you got a crowd that is screaming and yelling. The excitement's unreal when you get a fast paced game, which you always had back then in the older days because of the bosses. You're going to move them dice. I mean, you keep moving. You come off and you're sweaty. I mean, but the enjoyment of the game, getting into the people's ears, getting them to bet for you, working the whole layout and everything. There's nothing like it. It's a carnival ride you've never been on before. It's nuts.
Compare it to learning how to play the piano. You start off with two fingers learning how to play chopsticks. Okay, so all of a sudden, and back then, you couldn't be the one-arm crap dealer. You had to use both hands. So that means that if you weren't blessed with being ambidextrous right away, you better get on it. And you had to work your hands like this in the beginning, so that they would get stronger. If you were right-handed, your left-handed had to be just as good as your right. And if you were left-handed, the right had to be there. So you see a piano player that's accomplished. What's he doing? He's gliding over those keys. What do you think a croupier, a clerk, which is top-of-the-line crap dealer, was doing? He was putting them bets up, paying them bets, dropping them off over there. People are in your ear. I want to press it up $12 on a 6 and 8. Hey, I want double more odds on my come bets. You had to key in on as many people were at your end, anywhere from 10 to 14 people on one end, depending on the size of the crap table, because they used to have boats in some of these places. Tell them what a boat was.
Yeah, they had boats. They had 16, 18 footers. Those are boats. That's you could get 14 people, sometimes 16 if they turned sideways. And you could get them in there. They were so big that the first two spots next to the stickman had to pick up the bets and bring them in. You couldn't reach out there. You would teeter on the game. And that was funny. Certain people did teeter. As a few that I know, Danny Craps, they would teeter. But they made it in a funny way. You know, they'd get the crowd roaring when they did that. But that's how big the games were at the time. And I mean, you're working. You are working that game. The sticks were long for those big tubs. They were real long. They were like 6-foot sticks to reach all the way out there. And even I'm not that tall, but you're up on your tiptoes to reach them dice to bring them back in the middle. Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. One of the things you learned when you broke in, that stick was as foreign to you as a unicorn's horn in the middle of your forehead. You didn't know which way to go. You'd get that stick and try to bring the dice back, and you'd be herky-jerky, and the bosses in the box would look at you like, oh, my God.
Here we go again.
I mean, this guy's got a handicap, and he ain't even a golfer.
Yeah, that's
oh,
the truth.
Oh, my God. But you learned to use your both hands, and you learned that the pace of the game had to be fast, like trotter's pace. I mean, think of the boxman as having a whip in his hand, although they did this. And one guy asked me, he goes, is there flies over there? Yeah. I go, yeah, there's lots of flies. And they would go like that because when a hand showed in the old days, the bosses used to sweat the money. They didn't want that much going out. They figure sooner or later, if they had enough rolls, they were going to 7 out, and of course they were. But then, as dealers, we didn't want them to 7 out, but we couldn't show our enthusiasm. We had to play it cool both ways. The joint was given a chance to make money, but they didn't want us to, what they used to call, let me be graphic, they didn't want you to be a whore on the game. All of a sudden you were siding with the player, and then...
You scared me when you said that. Oh.
Explain what I mean, Pat, and I hate to be so crass.
No, crass. No, you didn't. We had 2 box men, what they called double box back then. We always had them. And when the game got big, you had one sitting here, one sitting here. Of course, you had the floor man in the back, and usually a shift boss in the back, eyeballing you, and sometimes the owner. You had a big game going on. The dice were going, and you did not want to be what he called a whore, which is going out and just more or less begging for money in front of people. You just didn't do that. You begged for money like that, they caught you, you were fired. Out the door, you got your pink slip. That's what they call a whore. That's where the finesse come in on how to work the players into your corner, more or less. You could get in their ear and start talking to them, and where are you from, where's your kids, your dogs, cats, whatever you needed to learn. And you would learn that, and you would learn that player, and then you move on to the next one. Next time they come in, you knew everything about them, who they were and all that. That was all a learning skill. That was a lot of 21, and actually Baccarat did not learn all of that. They were just, people coming into play. But Dice was totally different. Like I said, you got in, got down, you got dirty with the game.
Yeah, and if you think back when our dads broke in, they were dealing dimes at the Boulder Club, dimes, and there was no cutting the dimes. You had to pitch them out there.
You squirt them.
You squirt them out.
Squirt them out of your hands.
Yeah, your hand turned into a squirt gun, a dime squirt gun.
Yeah, and did. They squirt out dimes, and that's how it was. I remember at the Aladdin a couple of times where I had to deal bundles of money. They took the chips off the game. They brought in packets of money because we had a couple of players that would come in with grocery bags filled, and they would bet bundles, and we dealt bundles. It was a little funny. You didn't have to run the money down like they did in Baccarat, soap it and all that stuff. But you just dealt in packets, and it was quite interesting when we did that. That only happened a couple of times with us, but back then, to make your hands strong, we had silver dollars. The silver dollars are heavy, and once you start working with silver dollars, your hands got tough. And these chips now they have, they're not even clay now. The clay could break. These are plastic. So it's a totally different feel than what you used to have. They have ridges around the edges now that you can actually cut them real easy. Speed checks.
Totally different. Like Patent Pending said, with the silver, it made your hands, and then you could learn to pick. You could pick, and I don't mean on a guitar. You could pick the silver and go out there so it isn't all over the place, so it ain't getting scattered. You could do that, And like Patent Pending said, a lot of times before the 6A rule, there'd be cash. Someone would bet $5,000 in the field, and if he dropped the 5,000, naturally you had to count it to make sure, especially if he won. If he lost, you'd give it to the boxman, and then he would make sure it's 5,000. But you would have to count it very fast, very quickly, or the boxman would say, "Bring it in here, kid. I'll count it." And there was a lot of money plays back then. A lot of money plays.
Yeah.
You'd see a guy put 5,000 and 10,000 odds with cash. Cash. And let me tell you, and of course, Patent Pending, where he dealt in those places, the big players were mixed with the small players. You got a guy betting 12 each, 6 and 8. Next to him is a guy betting 6,000 each, 6 and 8. Then the little player is saying, go up 18 each. And the big player is saying, make 6 and 8. One hits, I want to make them 9,000 each. Pays 10,500. So let me tell you, crap dealers, it's not that we felt superior to the other dealers that dealt the other games, but we were a lot quicker.
Hey, you are a lot quicker. And that's another thing, a good point you brought up about little players and big players. We only had one sign that told what the minimum was, $3 sign, or it might be a dollar sign. And everybody played, like he said, you can bet $1 over here, or another guy's betting 10,000 over here. Now they have different signs, so you can change the different. The guy comes up and he's betting 1,000. They make it $1,000 game, so nobody else can play, or a reserve game for him if we're told to. But I mean, it's totally different now, to where you got dealers wanting you to change the sign so players can't get in. But back then, that one game, one $2 game, $3 game, everybody played on that game.
Oh, yeah.
And we had big play back then.
Oh, big play.
Where remember
big play.
the box? They had
Yeah.
the box in the middle where all the cash would go in the middle in front of the box man. They would change that box 3 times, 4 times a day. That thing would be completely full. With
You couldn't
cash
get the
money.
paddle down.
Couldn't get the paddle. It'd stick up that
It
high.
was all full of
Yeah,
cash.
full cash. They'd call, and they'd come out, and they'd change the box, put a new one in, and fill it up again. It's crazy just how fast paced that game can get.
It was. And also, the dealer's advantage, even though it didn't seem like it when the bosses wanted you to get a roll, if the dice were hot, that more money that you could put in your box. So naturally, you wanted to keep the pace up. And you were satisfying the bosses because you weren't lollygagging, you weren't slowing down the game or dragging it so that the hand would last longer. You're going to go with the flow. The stick man, he's going to watch his end to make sure that there's no mistakes, even though they have maybe double box on a big game. But you have these people throwing in money constantly from all over the place. And as a croupier or a clerk, you had to key in on everything. You were focused on what's going on. And one thing I learned from the old timers and my dad, he says, when things start to get like you're getting hairy, look up. Just look up. Clear your head. Just look up for a second or two. Clear your head and then get back into it. But there was nothing more exciting when a stick man was calling nothing but winners. And you'd feel like you could call a cat off a shrimp boat. That's how good you felt. The dice were hot. Your pockets were being filled with money. The pocket was so full, you were listening to the left like a ship. Then you had to go to your back pocket, then the other back pocket. Who knows wherever other openings you had on you.
And then, like I said, the game, there's nothing like being in a game that is so fast-paced and just money everywhere. You are so in tune to what's going on, taking care of your whole end, that you drowned everything else out. Even though the bosses are yelling at you and everything, that's when they kick you in the back of the shin. They'd let you know then, but you drown everything out because you're so in tune with what's going on. You're handling 13, 14 people at one shot. And I mean, them boxes would be completely filled with chips and then cash coming in and everything. And man, you were just working it. It is a fun time to be able to deal with them type of games. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Like being a Grand Prix race car driver
Yes.
that goes 200 miles an hour and hardly slows down around the corner. Believe that. I'm not saying that the dealers today wouldn't be able to survive, but they would have to go home and practice, because if the games were like they were back then, there would be a lot of crap dealers that wouldn't make it.
They couldn't hang.
The game is slowed down. It wasn't designed to be slow. It was designed to be dealt at a brisk pace.
That's true. And like I said, them bosses back there made sure you move them dice. Get a roll. If you didn't move the dice, come see me when you get off the game. You didn't want to hear that.
Oh, no.
You hear that, and you're either going to get written up, or like I said, you can go out the door. We'll find somebody else to take that spot.
No.
The dice game it's really a fun game when you get a good game going. People screaming and yelling. You're really in tune with what's going on in the game. And like I said, when you come off the game, you're wringing wet. You're just, you go take a break. It's all you can think about what you got going up there on that game. TV, nobody watched TV down there in the break rooms.
No.
They were too busy trying to figure out, or they got playing pitch or hearts or something like that. But we couldn't wait to get back up there on the game. That's why when you went home in the evening You just couldn't wait to get back in the next day because of the crowd of people you had in there. You knew they were going to be there for the next couple of days.
Sure.
And I mean, it would just, get going. Let's go. As soon as you open up that game, take the lid down. Here they come.
Oh, I mean, in droves.
Mm-hmm.
And you then let's not forget that the marker play. Guy says, of course, you had the boxman to help you out, because without the boxman, the game would have gotten slow.
Yes.
But a guy would come up, give me 100,000. Another guy, give me 200,000. Give me 50,000. They put what's known as a lammer. Tell them what a lammer is.
The lammer tells the denomination that they asked for. Say they asked for 20,000. They have a lammer that says 20. You put it out there in the middle, and it lays there. Then the floor man goes and gets a marker, makes sure he can get the money. He gets the marker, and it fills some stuff out on it. When there's a 7 out, then he goes around, has the customer sign it. They come back, they drop a paper, they pick the button up, they put it back up on the chips. Now he owes 20,000. He's obligated to pay that money back, one way or the other. He don't want collectors coming out after him, because back then they had collectors. They would go to their house. You owe us 20,000. How are you going to pay up? That was old school.
Oh, absolutely.
Now they do everything by lawyers. Back then they just grab by their little scrawny necks and give me the money.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
That's just how the game was. So one thing that me and Danny Craps got to be in, we got to see all that. We got to be around all that, and it's just nuts. It's funny how I can look back now and I sit there and go, wow, we were a part of this. We were part of this whole town.
Oh yeah.
Kept everything going. It's really, really exciting times.
And some of these big players had superstitions. Like I remember Johnny Yak. Johnny Yak was a friend of the guy that was a host over at the Aladdin. You knew him. Anyway, Johnny Yak, he'd bet 3,000 in the come, and he'd like come bets. When you paid the come bet, don't touch my money. Don't touch my money. So if he had 3,000 flat and 3,000 odds on the 4, his payoff was 9,000. Don't stack it up. Don't do nothing. Leave it out there. I don't want you to touch it after you pay it. So you had guys with a lot of superstition, and they had big money, so you couldn't, make any faces at them like, really, you're superstitious? No. The guy's got a $100,000 line. If he wants you to leave it in the come, don't touch it. When a dealer came in and accidentally tried to, don't touch my money, he would yell to the top of your lungs. I mean, I don't know how many glasses he shattered.
Yeah,
many.
They did do that. Believe it or not, I dealt to Spilatro. He came in, I was...
The ant?
Yeah, the ant.
Nah.
And he was just there to see somebody else, but he threw money in. I changed it up, give it to him. First thing he says, don't hand off my come bets. That's okay. So first bet, I go out there and I pay it and I hand it off. What did I? And he starts screaming and yelling at me and everything. He was not a very nice guy. And Nate come over and he told me, he said, kid, hey, just don't hand off his come bets. I said, oh, okay. I still don't know who he is at the time.
Right.
And then after he left, everybody said, that? No, I don't know who it was. Then you find out, and then you're like, yeah, your knees are shaking, like, oh my goodness. But yeah, we dealt to a lot of people like that. Bert Mole, I don't know if you knew him. He'd come in. He had Popeye arms, big forearms like this, and he'd land next to the stick, and he'd start playing. Don't touch his money. They'd scatter. Go pick it up, and he would take a stack of them chips, but of course they were clay, and hit them into the layout, and he would break all them chips. Now you had to go and give him a new stack of chips. And he wasn't a very nice guy either, but that's a type of people that we would deal to back then. You just learn. Leave them alone. If you knew they come in, just leave them alone. Go on about your business. Deal to the other players. Make friends with them. You're not going to make a friend with him.
Did you ever deal to Suttonberg?
No, I don't believe so.
No, he was a Dunes player, and he'd play at Caesar's Palace, and some of these guys would make some weird bets, and you had to, you'd have to really put on your thinking cap somewhere, and then when you wouldn't make the right payoff, he would ridicule you. I thought you were a crab dealer. You must not be. You must be an imitation. And he was a big player, Suttonberg. he had all the garbage distribution in New York City.
No.
So he had some,
Yeah.
and so I used to tell him, I go, hey, I'm at your disposal, Mr. S.
Nah.
He'd say, you think that's funny? I said, I thought it was. Kid, I can have you replaced. I said, well, it looks like I'll be on a garbage truck if I don't get it right. But you had these players. Another one, I don't know if Pat and Penny dealt to him, but I used to deal to Adonai Khashoggi.
No, Khashoggi.
Khashoggi was, at that time in the 80s, was the biggest arms dealer in the world. And when he'd come up, he would get a rack of 500,000. And all he liked to play was the propositions.
Good.
And he had a guy, valet or whatever he was. You never spoke to Mr. Khashoggi directly. If you did, it was like, in his country they would behead you, but here they would just yell at you. And the valet guy would say, "Do not address Mr. Khashoggi." I said, "Oh, okay," because he's a big guy. I can't really, And he would bet all the propositions, right? And then he'd blow through the $500,000. Give me another $500,000. But
he was big. He was the biggest player this town seen for. I mean, there was nobody really bigger than him at the time. He was big. He always brought in a big entourage. They roped off the whole game. The whole game they'd rope off, and he'd come in and start playing. Like I said, it was all props and everything like that. But like every 3 or 4 rolls, he'd say, "This roll's for the dealers. Win or lose, didn't make no difference. You were going to drop some money off him."
Oh yeah.
And but like you said, that a lot of them, the players, the guys that were with him that were close, they didn't want you acknowledging anything too much from him. Just deal the game.
No.
And we'll handle everything out here.
Yeah, you'd had to go through his go-between. There was other people that were like that they had someone there that they would say, Mr. G doesn't want you to talk to him directly. You go through his valet. Oh, okay. Mr. G wants you to put 9,000 inside, which is, if the point is 6 or 8, then the inside numbers of 5, 8, and 9, that's what you play. You'd have the 6, and then you'd have 3,000 on the inside number. And then you'd cut out the payoff, and you wouldn't hand it off directly because if you've dealt to him before, he's going to want to press something. And the valet he'll get in his ear. He'll get in the valet's ear. He said, "Make the 5 and 9 5,000 each." So 3,000. The payoff is 4,200. So you're going to hand off the 200, and you're going to put the 2,000 on the 5 for 9 to make them 5,000 each. But just imagine, and you've got other players to boot, so you got to make sure that he gets what he wants. Otherwise, there could be instant heat. Tell him what heat is, and I don't mean the desert heat.
Heat. Well, you had heat from them, and you had heat from the bosses. So you caught it from all ends. And the boxmen, you caught heat. That's where they're going to have a talking to you when we're there. Boxmen would have it to you right on the game. Kid, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. The player, don't touch my badge. You're being screamed at from everybody. Of course, you got the shift boss back there screaming at you. "What's that kid doing?" Hey, that's heat. And when you get off the game, you're going to be addressed by one of them. It's going to address you, and you learn. That's how you end up learning. And I'm glad they taught us that, because I tell you, by them having a good talking to you, it whips you right into place to where you become a good clerk. You become what they want.
The best compliment you could get, and you didn't get many of them, would be mostly from the boxmen. They'd say, "Kid, you're a good dealer. That last kid in there, he was having trouble, but man, you're smooth.
You're
good.
Hands.
You're good, sure. Kid. You're good. Keep it up." Because, over the years, crap dealers can pick up bad habits. You got guys that were sniffers. I think we did that poem where they did cocaine. You had guys that became alcoholics. What happens when you're an alcoholic and you don't get a drink? The shakiest dealer in the West. You got to go have a drink at the bar real quick, or there was guys that drank on the job.
Absolutely. Get off on break, and they would hide little bottles of booze and stuff in their little plants. They'd go by and get it, go in the bathroom, they'd drink it down. You could smell it all over them.
Yeah.
Everybody knew what they were doing. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, when they start, wobbling around a little bit, they were having a talking to. Yeah, you can't be doing that on the game.
No, because when you made this kind of money, and when I'm talking serious money, if you worked at a good store, like Pat and Penny and I did, you made some serious money. You made scores. Crap table was one of the. I couldn't believe the money that you could make off a crap table, especially you go to work and it's kind of quiet, and all of a sudden a few people come up, and all of a sudden you're loading up your box, and you're getting excited. That I can't tell you the adrenaline rush. Pat and Penny can tell you because he was there. The adrenaline rush when you got the opportunity to make a lot of money. Let me tell you, it's a rush in itself.
Yeah, it is a rush. I mean, it becomes pandemonium when you got everybody, like I said, just screaming and yelling, and you're really in tune with the game. You're filling your box, making everybody happy. And when and we had the power of the pen, which means that if they wanted to go for dinner, lunch, they wanted to go see a show, you tell the floor man, hey, they want to go, and he would write them out a comp. Here, go ahead. And they could not wait to get back to see it, because you're giving them something for nothing what they're seeing, even though they're blowing their money. You're actually giving. That's what's missing out there now. They don't have that out there anymore.
No.
That's all by the wayside. The fast-paced game is gone.
No.
We used to have a fast-paced. Now it's they wait on everything. It's I've never seen anything like it.
Plus, they got all these side games now. You have all tall, all small, make 'em all. You got, I believe, at the Venetian Palazzo, you have Diceology, which is another one for what they call the big ones, the little ones, and boom or bust. So you have all these side bets, which slows the game down. Now, the pencil pushers will tell you that the percentage is out there, but what they don't realize that we do is that if the crap games went back to the way they were and the game moved faster and the dealers were acclimated to faster, the percentage and the PC would go up, which tell them what the PC is.
PC, that's percentage rate. I mean, he's right. If you get all these side games and everything going on, it's taken away from what's really built this town on.
Yeah.
That town would build on dice games, fast-paced moving. Now, all these side bets just slow everything right down to a crawl. They can't get the money in the box. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just slowed everything right down. But like I said, the pencil pushers, they seem to know what's better than we know, even though these buildings were getting higher and higher and higher. So it's I don't know. I just think they've lost a little bit of the old school type myself.
Yes.
And I wish that would sort of come back. I doubt that it will. It's probably all gone by the wayside, which is sort of sad. It's sad, but we got to see the best part of it all.
We were
That's
right
for
in the
sure.
mix.
Right
We were
in
in
the
middle. We were in the middle of some of the biggest crap games you could ever imagine, and unbelievable, just unbelievable. The play, being a part of an hour and something roll, and seeing, I mean, the table dumping $1 million, and or seeing somebody lose $2-3 million, and someone says, "How was your day at work?" Now I'm talking to another guy. "Oh, the table lost 5,000-10,000. They were really sweating it." "Oh, really? Oh. How much did you make today at your place?" "Oh, I made 129. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
How much do you have in your pocket, Danny?" "Oh, maybe 3,000-4,000.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was totally different back then. That's why I'm glad that we're able to talk about all this. I'm glad that you viewers out there are getting to listen a little bit about what we're talking about, because we dealt it. We were there. I just wish somebody would email us in VegasDiceKings22@gmail.com, and just give us some answers, give us some questions. I mean, and we'll try and give you the right answers.
Get a roll. Get a roll.
Get a roll.
That was
Yeah.
the word of the day when you went to work and the dice started spitting.
Yeah.
Spitting means passing. They started to, passing Paulsons, because Paul Dyson's son were the ones that they made all the dice for all
Yes.
the casinos back then. Paul Dyson's son. So they were called Pass and Paulsons
Pass and
back then.
Paulsons, they sure were.
Oh, yeah.
Bud Jones was the other game, and
That's right.
the other makers. But
Yeah.
Pass and Paulsons, and when you went into work, it was head down, butt up, and let's go, get a roll. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's exactly
well, I'm glad
right.
you guys got to sit there and watch us roll today a little bit. I've had fun doing it. Danny Craps, how about yourself?
Listen, it's been the most fun with my clothes on, believe me, because I don't want to take them off. It'd be a shocker.
Yeah, it'd be shocker.
Yes, it would be. But you know what? It was great being a crap dealer back then and watching some of these big hands and some of the players that had been playing back then for decades.
Absolutely.
I mean, decades. I mean, it seemed like they never run out of money, or they go get a TTO, which is, I need
Just
another
strip
100,000.
only. Sure.
I need another 200,000.
Yeah.
And you'd have players say, "Hey, I'll never run out of money. I got more money than the river in New York. What's that river called?"
The river in New York.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The
kings,
Hudson River.
queens, all of them. Yeah, I mean, we've dealt to everybody. I'm glad to be a part of all that.
Oh,
So,
unbelievable! Some of the
anyhow,
people we dealt to. But
thanks
anyway,
everybody. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
listening to us.
thank you. And like life, keep rolling.
Keep
Keep
rolling.
rolling them bones.
Yes.